Welcome to The Triple Shift, the conversation for people leading at work while caring at home and trying to stay through it all. I'm Denise Brown.
And I'm Lauren Yankoff. And around here, we believe the future of work is being written in real time by working caregivers, executives, managers, and everyday professionals balancing the triple shift of work, life, and care.
During each episode, we'll ask the same 3 questions to understand the full picture of what this really feels like, what it means for leadership, culture, and well-being.
We'll start with your story.
Then explore how carrying those 3 shifts change the way you see work, leadership, or success.
And finally, what you want workplaces to do differently if they truly understood both the cost and the wisdom of caregiving.
Our goal is simple: insight and connection. We want you to hear yourself in these stories and leave with language, perspective, and hope.
And when you're ready for strategy and support, that's where we come in.
Let's get into it.
Well, welcome to the 3rd episode of Work Live Care, the Triple Shift. I'm excited today to introduce our guest, Michelle Uebel, who I have known for about a year now on her journey of caregiving. And Michelle, why I wanted to bring her in today is an only child, a woman who is caregiving across distance in 2 states, and also has a very large job, who is someone in the pharmaceutical industry, travels extensively and internationally, and is balancing so much in all that she is doing. So, Michelle, I know I gave an introduction of what you do, but I would love for you to share a little bit of what your triple shift looks like for our listeners.
Sure. And thank you, Lauren. And thank you, Denise, for having me on today. I'm excited to be able to talk to both of you and share the journey in the hopes that, maybe this will help other people or trigger something. That's what I always like to get out of some podcasts. And when I've listened to your podcast in the past, those little nuggets of either self-care or ways that I can take lessons into my own caregiving or into my own self-care. So thanks again for having me. So when I think of the triple shift, it's a lot going on, right? There's work, there's family, there's caregiving, and then everything else outside of your life. And what I realized is that I can never give 100% to everything. Something has to shift. So if you have 3 things, sometimes you can give 100% to one thing and not the others, or it's a balance. It's a balance for me. And sometimes it's 75 or 80% caregiving and 10% work and 10% other things. And other times it is a balance. So I feel that accepting that and not working against it. I used to think I had to do everything at 100% and go on all cylinders. And I thought that's what everyone was doing because everyone looked like they had it all together at these meetings. And I would talk to people and they would share something that they had a parent or a brother in a situation where they needed extra care. And I thought, what? How are they doing it? They look like they're so put together, but when you talk to them, they do have extra support and they've put things in place in order to be able to give at work more or to give at home or to give to the family. So I guess that's one of the things that came to mind when we talked a little bit before about triple shift.
Awesome. And I know your triple shift is made up of your job, caring for your mom,
Yes.
and then obviously living your life, which is
Yes.
very full.
Yes.
And what I appreciate is you shared you're kind of finding this way to divvy that up and at any given point into different percentages, right, to make up the whole. And you come to accept that. I love that word, by the way, acceptance, because I
Yeah.
think in caregiving, it's so critical when we're caring for someone to just kind of accept where we're at and what we're doing, right? But what are some of the things that you've you have done for yourself throughout this that's helped you find that rhythm of moving in between those
Hmm.
percentages, I guess
You're
I would
right.
say.
Right. I think one of the things is reaching out to others for help, input, assistance, and saying I need help. Like me reaching out to you, Lauren, for that, for those discussions that we've had with how do I do this? Or how do I navigate this? I mean, being an only child, I think anytime in a caregiving situation, it can feel isolating for people that are in it. But what I see with other people that's they have sisters, brothers, other family members. And to give everybody perspective, my mother lives by herself. She's an only child. I'm an only child. So it can feel like I'm on this island making decisions in an arena where I have no idea. Like, how do I make caregiving decisions? Because I am power of attorney for both healthcare and finance for her. Now that she's gotten older and she has cognitive impairment. So it's kind of like, whoa, I just felt really overwhelmed and I wasn't sure where to go. And I remember going to some, I tried a bunch of different things. I tried support groups. I tried reaching out to other people in different ways, and everyone had a different opinion as well. Some of the support groups were, some were great, and others were people getting together to, for lack of a better word, to vent. And I wanted to understand more of my mother's condition and put together a care plan for her that would work both for her and for me, but also make sure that I could keep my life together and keep my sanity while I did it, and also have time to do the things that I like. And one of the things that we talk about a lot, Lauren, is what are you doing for yourself at this time? Even if it's small, sitting quiet and having a cup of coffee, or journaling, or going on a hike, or exercising is really important to me. That seems to be a non-negotiable for me, to make sure that throughout this whole, it maybe gets out that energy for me, and exercise and yoga and just different things like that. So that's what comes to mind when we talk about that question.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, first of all, you cover so much that I think is so important because, man, being an only child, which I relate to,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
it does feel like you're on an island sometime.
Yeah.
And you talked about getting that support to really talk through what you needed, the help
Mm-hmm.
that you needed. I, it, I, you said something, and I saw Denise's face, and I think this is so funny. In those groups, everybody has an opinion, and that's really hard, right? When you're
Yeah,
hearing
right,
all
right,
these different opinions.
right.
So, how have you, through this process and your caregiving journey, really tapped into what is right for you?
I think one of the things what I think of is setting boundaries with myself and other people around me. I realized in some of those, and even when my mom has had some helpers come in, when we've had to have, when we didn't have the steady stream and we had some more people come in, some people would approach me with, in a way that just made me feel so overwhelmed with everything, like using verbiage like, oh, your mother, or you've got to do this, you have to do that. And that just put me in such a fight or flight mode for some reason. That's how I reacted, with that kind of language. And even with some friends, or people will say silly things to you without even thinking, like, well, it's not going to get any better. You're like, thanks. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So with that, I've noticed that I either need to say something in a kind way, or depending on the situation where I'm at, or remove myself, in a group where people are voicing their opinions and telling, okay, thank you. Well, I need to go. I have a call. Like, right. We're all virtual. We can all say we have a call in 5 minutes. But I think it's just removing myself from those type of situations and putting myself more in situations where I feel more supported, rather than having that other type of language around me. And that's just how the way I respond. I respond to a softer language, more of a collaborative type of atmosphere. Yeah, but you're right. A lot of people have opinions on what to do.
Yeah.
Also notice it's trial and error. I
Mm.
feel so, what works with my mother, what doesn't. One of the things I know, Lauren, we talked about a lot, and I think is kind of common in the older population, is that they do well in a familiar setting. And I had heard that if you take them out of their setting, sometimes they don't do well. Maybe they get confused, they can get agitated. And I've noticed that. So I pay attention to that when I'm thinking of how to support my mom longer. Maybe she is better off mentally and physically in her own home. And what does that look like? Or would she now? She still has some of her personality. Let's just say that she still has some of her personality. So, is it having conversations with her now to make sure that I understand in the future if she cannot live by herself, what that looks like? What does she want that to look like? So, just having those conversations with her as well, I think, is part of the equation.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Because what I appreciate that you're sharing for our listeners too, Michelle, is that it's really around finding what works for you and for your mom,
Yeah.
having those conversations, but you're setting boundaries around what you know you have capacity for, what's right for you, removing yourselves. I heard you say you're removing yourselves from situations that you're like,
Right.
nope. and
Exactly.
and it's so
Exactly.
like that can be really difficult, but it's also really important because you're preserving yourself so that you have bandwidth. And
Yeah.
I
Right.
just think
Exactly.
that's such a critical piece that is really important. I'm
Hmm.
curious too, because you're often managing your care
Hmm.
across country.
Right. Right. Right.
Is
Right.
there anything that you would share that has been helpful for you or that you found challenges around that you would want to share with our listeners?
Sure. A few things come to mind, and it took a while, but we have, I feel, a very good care structure for my mother when she's in home in LaSalle. She does come down here. I live part-time in Arizona in the winters, and she does come down here with me to enjoy the weather, and we do some health doctor appointments down here. But when she's mainly at home in the Chicago area, I am 2 hours away from her. I'm about a 2-hour drive. And what we've put in place over the years, and like I said, it took some time and some fine tuning, but I feel we have a good cadence and predictability to everything that's going on now, which is about as much as you can do in a situation with caregiving. But we rotate between 3 home helpers, and we call them helpers, that come in the morning, and they are amazing. Like, they are my eyes and ears. I talk to them a lot. I try and cultivate an openness. So if they tell me something about my mom that maybe shouldn't be doing, I don't go back and talk to my mom about it. I keep it between us, and we talk about how we want to help support her. So I try and cultivate an appreciation, knowing that they can trust me. I continue to say thank you. And they're very kind and caring people. So we have them that come in for maybe 4 or 5 hours a day to help my mother with shower, activities of daily living, essentially things that she can't do on her own: laundry, going up and downstairs to get things, cooking meals, going and getting her prescriptions because she doesn't drive anymore. So different things like that. So that's been really helpful. We do have a pendant that goes around her neck if she wears it in times of, I falling. I worry that she is alone for a few hours and overnight. So if she were to fall, no one would want their loved one to be laying there, especially if she was injured. The other thing is we have a trusted person who does a lot of her yard work and lawn maintenance, who lives across the street and is kind enough. We've hired him to take her dog out at night. So he's my eyes and ears at night for that night check-in. And it's a little bit disguised as, oh, I have to take the dog out because she can't really go in and out very well anymore, but he's a check as well. So we have that set up. And maybe I'll share something as an example of how that's kind of worked. And just also one of the challenges of being away for work or away from the situation is there was a night where I work for a German company, and I was at our headquarters in Germany, and I got a call in the middle of the night from her dog walker gentleman. And he said, Michelle, your mom, she has bad legs and has had back surgery. So he said, your mom, we can't get her up off the couch. She can't get up off the couch to get into her bed. And she's been trying. He's like, I've been here with her for an hour. And so I said, okay. And I talked to mom a little bit. She's like, I just can't. My legs won't work. I just can't. And I said, well, do you want to sleep on the couch tonight? And she said, no, because for some reason she was on the love seat, which is small. It's small, so she couldn't get comfortable. And I said, well, hit the button. That's what it's for. That's what the alert is for. The people came, they helped her. They helped her get in. They called me. They assured me she was fine, and she went to bed. So it's having those things in place. And I know he was upset about it, but I said, that's what we have this service for. That's what we pay the service for. It's for anything. It's if she locks herself out, if she can't get up off of the couch. So I use that, and I guess that's an example of how it worked. In the past, I would have probably been up for about most of the rest of the night thinking about that and ruminating and being upset about the fact that she couldn't get up, and that's where she was in her life and her where she is right now. But I think just acceptance. And I went to bed took me about an hour, and then I went back to bed a little bit because I had a big day the next day. So that's an example that of having things in place. And I know you can't, I talk to Lauren about this all the time. It's like I can't wrap my loved one in bubble wrap and to keep her safe. But there are certain things that I can do. And then everything else is kind of up to chance and how we can support her.
It's a great story. And more than anything, though, I think the shift you shared around you weren't up all night ruminating,
Yeah,
and that's
right.
really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I thank you for sharing that and sharing some of the things you have in place. Denise, I'm not sure if you have any follow-up or if you want to move on. She's going to ask our second question here.
Sure.
It's interesting to think of the shifts within the shifts.
Right.
And there's often this perspective shift as well. So, because you've been carrying this triple shift, I wonder what has changed for you in terms of how you look at work and leadership and success.
Mm-hmm. I think it's changed the way that I've looked at success also with maybe getting a little bit older in my job. I used to in previous roles, I used to head up teams and have people that report to me. And now I'm more content in my individual contributor role. So it's almost, I work for a great luckily I work for a great company that I really enjoy my role. I don't know in the future if I want to be in a management role, who knows what the future brings, but I think it makes me be a little bit more content in the current role that I have. Also knowing because I could be stretched very thin at times for work, like talking about the different buckets where your time goes and your mind is. So I think it's just, seeing where I'm at right now and then making those adjustments. And I almost didn't take this job. I used to do international travel years ago, and then I took a job that was more US based after that just because I was looking for a change and the opportunity presented itself at that time. And this current position I work for, I've been wanting to work for the company a long time, and I almost didn't take it because of the idea of, well, I'm going to be traveling internationally. I'm going to be, 8.5 hour flight away. I can't just jump on a flight if something happens. If something happens to my mom or that I need to be back in town. But I have a great partner in my partner Nathan, and he's very supportive. I have friends that live in the area that have always reached out and said, if you ever need anything, let me know. So I feel that in the past, I used to really think, "Oh, I got to do it on my own. No, I'm not going to ask her. I mean, I don't want to burden her. But I thought if the time comes, I am going to ask them because they wouldn't say it if they didn't mean it. So I think it's also reaching out to other people and accepting their help when they offer it.
It's interesting. I think we also look at what does our shift look like, each
Mm,
individual shift. And it's interesting that you looked at your work shift, so to speak, and decided I can keep moving forward with a job that is going to challenge me, that is something that I want, and includes international travel. Because it's easy to say, not now. I'm going to just wait for another opportunity at a different time. I'm
mhm.
curious how long it took you to work through. I think I can do this. I can do this. It's okay to do this.
Yeah. And the interview process with this job was maybe relatively quick for corporations. It was about 2 months. So from the start of it, I thought, well, I don't know if that's something that I would be able to take. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, that would be something that seems really cool, really exciting. I had known about the company for a long time because they were my customer, and I always thought that they would be a great company to work for. And so, with talking with my partner and having other discussions with friends and also people that were like past coworkers that I really trust, that know me, that know my work and things. They're like, yeah, you can do this. You can do this. And the other thing is all of my mom's caregivers know where I am.
Mm,
So
yes.
they
Yes.
know it's again having that support structure and communicating. Not all the time my mom knows that I'm in Europe because she would worry. So a lot of times I don't tell her, but they all know. They all know, and they all know that they can reach out to me at any time. So I remember having the discussions with them too, if they would be comfortable with it. And everyone was. So I thought, well, it doesn't seem to be a non-issue with anybody else except me, and so I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, I love that the opportunity presented itself. You didn't give it a quick no. You just explored not only within the organization, but within your circle of support. What does this look like if I take this position? What's the impact on others, and how can others support me? Which is
Right.
really great. Because I do think sometimes we're just like, no, I can't. And I think it's most important to consider what's
Yes.
possible.
Yes, yes. And I come from a family of be cautious, don't rush into things, be
Oh,
cautious, don't
mhm.
make any big moves. So that's always a little bit ingrained with me as well. But as I've gotten older, kind of broke out of that mold a little bit, I've been a little more open to take chances. And I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I
Yeah.
did.
And what you did was really you weighed the risk.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
in many ways, I think of a caregiving experience is all about weighing risks
Yeah. Yeah.
because our caree wants to be independent or as independent as possible. We want them to be safe, but there isn't bubble wrap the size of a person that we can actually wrap them in. So we're always trying to just balance this. How does our caree stay engaged in quality of life in their life while we do the same for ourselves? What's interesting is you had a great story about the call in the middle of the night before a big work day. And I think about the spread that happens between shifts. So something really upsetting and worrisome happened with your mom and in the middle of the night. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have to go back to sleep so that you are at your best for your next shift. How do
Right.
you how do you manage that spread that can also go the other way where you've had a really challenging day at work and you're just like, oh,
Oh,
I
right,
just
right.
I'm done today. But the day isn't over for you because there's another shift. How do you
Hmm.
manage that spread?
I think it's putting in boundaries also, and making sure that if there's something that I need, I do that. And it's also been practice too, Denise. So, meditation, journaling, realizing that I can't control the outcome of most, if not everything in life. And I surely can't control what happens with my mother. I can support as much as I can, but then there's also the other side of it that if something does happen in the middle of the night, I'm not going to be there anyway. Like the closest I would be a 2-hour drive away. If something happens, what am I going to do? It's kind of one of those things where you just have to let go of control.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the hardest
Oh,
perspectives
I
to be
know.
okay with,
I know.
which is that even if I were 100% present, there's always going to be something that happens. And to be able to say, I don't need to be 100% present because life will
Mhm.
continue. It's okay. We take on that guilt and it's my fault. I should have been there. And there's just nothing that we can do about the cycle of life.
Right. I mean, I could be living with her and leave to go run an errand and something happens. I mean, you can't predict anything. So I don't want to live my life in fear of that something's going to happen. And she doesn't want that for me either. And she doesn't, she wouldn't want that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you've done everything you can to mitigate risk. And that's awesome.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. I'm in the pharmaceutical industry, so we're talking about risk all the time.
There you go.
So I guess it comes in, it's just part of how my work day and part of how I work.
I think that's interesting because you are successful in all shifts. I don't think that you can be successful in one shift and then not have that spread over into the next shift. You are just successful, so it impacts all shifts with that
Yeah.
success.
Well, thank you. Yes, yes. It's taken some work, but I've gotten there. Or well, maybe I'll never know if I've gotten there. Where is there, right? But I continue to evolve. I guess is something that's maybe a little bit better said.
And I think Lauren has our last question for us today.
Very cool. Thank you. Well, Michelle, if workplaces truly understood the triple shift, what it costs, and also the wisdom that it brings, what would you want them to do differently to support caregivers?
I think what would be great is just to have create a culture of openness and transparency with people. So early in my career, even not that long ago, I would hide things that were going on. I wouldn't say anything to my manager. I wouldn't let them know what I was going through. But it's interesting that in this position that I have now, I have a great manager, and I've actually known him for a long time. And now he's within the industry, and now he's my manager. So maybe that allows me to feel a little bit more open with him. But I also luckily work for a European company. And, Europeans typically have a culture of a little bit more vacation, family first type of thing. So when my mother was having back surgery and it was right the same week as our sales meeting, I chose not to go, and I was very well supported by all of my management and everything. In fact, they were like, you know, wish her a speedy recovery, stay there, stay home. So I guess it's just companies building that culture of transparency. I know there was a company that I worked for a few years ago. It was a short stint because they weren't what I was looking for. Let's just say that. And there was no way I would have told them what I was going through because I didn't feel supported, and I felt like they could use it against me. Like at first, and I don't think that anything regarding my work had shifted when my mother was going through some of the ups and downs, but I think that other companies may not view things the same. So I think it's working for a company that really supports this. I think that seems to be the trend of where workplace is going. I feel it used to be like work, work, work. I'm so busy, and that was a badge of honor. And now it's seems to have shifted for the better, to supporting employees because employees cost a lot of money to replace an employee, and it's in their best interest to support us. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And I think Denise and I have been looking at statistics, but I think it's like when companies invest in care policy, the return on that investment it's like two or three times the dollar that they put
Mhm.
in, which is significant. So it aligns with what you're saying, right? We
I've heard
reduce
some of those.
turnover, we do all of that. The ability to be transparent and open is so important in these situations. You said you have a great boss, you work for a European company, so you feel like that's a little more at the forefront.
Mhm.
Um, is there anything specific that they're doing that you feel is more pace setting than other companies that you've experienced that?
Nothing more than I think some of the things I've shared with you with even my upper management reaching out and saying, I understand you can't attend this meeting. You do whatever you need to do to take care of your family, whatever you need to do, we'll be here. We'll be here. The other thing is it's more related to coworkers too. They've all jumped in, said, if you ever need me to cover anything, which I've said the same thing to them when they've had to go out, one of their kids had emergency or one of their kids is sick or they're out of the office. I've said to them the same thing. If there's anything you need me to handle while you're gone, just let me know. So I think it also that upper management support that I wasn't expecting to hear from. That was nice as well. It was kind of like that extra level.
Absolutely. Well, and it reinforces, right? When you hear it from the top level, you know that it's part of the total culture versus just your first line manager, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
often you can say it at one level, but if
Mhm.
it's not throughout the
Yeah,
whole organization, you're not sure
yeah.
where it
And I
stands.
think,
So that's great to hear.
yeah, one of the other things that comes to mind is I was talking to a friend and her mother was having surgery and she was flying down to Florida. And her company was asking her for basically a doctor's note and another note and some different things to support this trip and was like, well, we don't want you gone that long. We want you. She ended up leaving because of that, because that upset her so much that she was thinking, if something really bad, I mean, her mother was having knee replacement surgery. But if something had happened that was an emergency and she needs to go and to have to go through some of those things, she just didn't like that it was creating that type of vibe, lack of better
Yeah,
things, and asking her to give a certain level of accountability with that, considering everything else she was going through at that
yeah.
time. And so I think relating back to me, that makes me want to stay at this company longer. Not that I wasn't going thinking about it before that I would have longevity at this company, but that helps support it.
100%. It's such a great example, right, of your experience of feeling supported from top
Mhm.
leadership to your direct report or direct manager, and
Mhm.
then an organization that is not making it easy is wanting documentation. And we hear a lot of that, a lot of companies that want documentation or their policy says this or whatnot versus really understanding the need for flexibility comes up so much, just
Yeah,
responsiveness in those situations. So, such a great example to share. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Denise, did you want to add anything before we close up?
You know what I was writing when you were just talking, Michelle, is the word trust.
Mm,
And I think that is part of the triple shift is trust within each of those shifts. And
Yeah.
it's trust for yourself, trust for the resources, trust for what you've set up to
Mhm.
manage during the shift, and continuing to build what creates trust.
mm,
Right. Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
It was wonderful to have you on today, Michelle. It was
Yeah,
really
thank you
great to
both. I
connect
appreciate
with
it.
you. Yeah,
Great
thank you.
conversation. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and I'll continue to listen to your other podcasts and hopefully always get little nuggets of tidbits that I always learn.
I love it. Well, Denise, I love that you ended on trust, and I also just want to circle back because I think one of the things that Michelle said earlier on was acceptance. And there's something in I having known Michelle for a year now and watching the journey, just there's something really, I think that perspective shift you talked about, and there's the trust and acceptance, I think, go hand in hand too, of really being able to know where you're at in your journey, having strong boundaries in place, and
Mhm.
really confidence in what you've put together. It's been a pleasure working with you and
You
hearing more
too,
of your
Lauren. You
story
too.
today.
Absolutely.
And we just loved hearing all that you have done. So thank you for sharing your triple shift with us today,
Yeah,
Michelle.
thank you. Thank you for having me. It was
And
great.
I'm sure people may have questions or want to reach out to you. How can they get in touch with you?
I think you'll share, but I have my email address that you can share, and then also my LinkedIn page.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, we'll make
Yeah.
sure those are in the show notes. And thank you so much for being
Okay.
with us today,
Thank
Michelle.
you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
I loved our conversation with Michelle, and it brought back a memory for me of about 13 years ago. An online community that I managed had working family caregivers. And so we had a conversation about when you're interviewing for a new job, what do you tell the potential employer about your caregiving experience? And it was really interesting because I always remember this wonderful family caregiver, Bob, who was caring for his wife at the time. And he said, I always ask during the interview process, how do they feel about an employee with a caregiving responsibility? And he says, I talk about it during the interview process. which I thought was so smart. And the other opportunity during the interview process is to ask about benefits that are available when you're in a caregiving situation. That way, you have the full picture and the company has the full picture. And if it's out of alignment for either or both of you, it's better to know during the interview process so that you can move on and find an organization that aligns better with where you are in your life right now. I thought that was really interesting. And it's so when Michelle was talking about how she landed where she is, that was very intentional about how she landed where she is. What was interesting too is that international travel wasn't a deal breaker for her because
Hmm.
the company is so family friendly. So in another organization she worked for, the deal breaker was that it wasn't family friendly.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So I think it just reminds us that we have the ability to really speak out during an interview process to better understand how does the organization align with what our life is right now.
Absolutely. And, just I love what you're sharing too, because I think not only that, but I thought what was interesting is she talked about being okay with being an individual contributor. And for a lot of executive level leaders, that can be an adjustment or a difficult place to be. But she also identified that no, that was the right place for her. She's perfectly happy with being in that role. That's the right thing. And it fits this season of life for her. So the intention with which, to your point, she chose the company, the role, the travel, being an IC, it all really fit her life. And she's very happy with what she's doing, and it's very fulfilling. And even as an only child, as a caregiver, managing care across states, she still is able to find this, as she called it, balance with the percentages in her life and how that is kind of moving in any given stage. So it really is, she's got so much intention with how she's doing things to bring her life into being in the way she wants it. It's really a great story.
She used the word content.
Hmm.
And isn't that what we all want, to feel content? And I also think she reminds us that we don't have to settle. And I think if you settle in whatever shift, it also shifts and has an impact on the next shift. And if we settle, I think we also start to move into a situation where we are enduring. And I like to remind myself on a regular basis, enduring is not a coping strategy. If we are settling and enduring, we are not content. It's like impossible to have
Yes.
enduring and settling aligned with content. I think Michelle, it's just such a nice reminder for us that it is possible to create the career you want in a caregiving situation.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
intention, it's energy, it's also conversation, it's work, and it's possible. So when we
Hmm.
start to think, oh, it's not possible for me, it's really important to pivot to what is possible and to consider it.
And Denise, what is possible in the content? So, not just from a work perspective, but from a life perspective, because I think there's really intentional work that she's done too. And she used a word that I love, and it's non-negotiable. And I don't know if you caught that, but she has one non-negotiable for herself, and it's really around her exercise. And I know when I talk with you, it's your swimming. I know that about you. And she has that too. And even if some days it's not as much as she would like, but she makes sure she moves. And when I think about in these phases of life, if we find that one anchor, right, that can make such a difference to keep us going, to ground us, to make sure that that rhythm of life keeps moving for us. So I just think that like non-negotiable, kind of like that's our thing for us in this phase that will keep us going, is so important too.
I'll just add one last point, and that is it's a communicated non-negotiable.
Mhm.
If we keep it to ourselves, this is my non-negotiable. And then people are wondering, why is she going swimming? I have to communicate that in order for me to stay a pleasant, organized, efficient individual, and those are important characteristics for me, I need to do things like swim. I also need to stretch every morning. And if I tell people that, then they support it and understand it. If I keep it to myself, they can't read my mind. And then they can't
That's
support it. I want to give them the opportunity to support what is my non negotiable. So, my parents, when I cared for them, always supported my non negotiables and would encourage me, you better go. I think they saw the difference in my demeanor
yeah,
when I gave up the non negotiable. It wasn't a pretty experience for any of us.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, good. All right. Well, thank you, Denise.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. This was really fun. That's today's conversation on the triple shift. If something resonated, share this episode with someone who's carrying a lot and could use a little clarity and a lot of support.
For leaders and organizations ready to build workplaces that actually work for caregivers, we'd love to help. You can connect with us at denise@caringourway.com or lauren@theempoweredexec.com.
And if you're navigating your own triple shift, you're not alone, and your story matters.
So subscribe, leave a review, and tell us what you want to hear next. It genuinely shapes this show. Thank you for listening. Take care of your people and yourself.